Welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're new to our channel, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. If you've been a long-time viewer, thank you guys so much for your continued support. It really means a lot to Kevin and I. So this week, we're gonna make a steamroller for you guys. We just want to let you know a few things before we get in the studio, but it's been a lot of fun making that.
Absolutely, that was a cool demo. Nice old school technique right there. It was great seeing everyone in the recent Tony Kazi online workshop. It was great with all the camera angles and stuff, and Tony busted out a couple pieces. He made this guy, the dragon, a couple pendants, all in the 8-hour class. And then you guys did some collabs too.
Yeah, it was really amazing having him here for a few days, and the camera angles were great. Thank you, Kevin, for your help producing it.
No problem.
Yeah, it's a great experience for the students because they get multiple camera angles that are like no one's in the way, they're close up, super clear. So please join us for the next workshop. I'm going to be announcing some soon. And for those of you guys who have been part of the whole online school and taking my classes, thank you. It's been amazing, and I put up a new video every week. There's going to be some new exciting ones that haven't been put up yet that I'm working on. So
Very
thank
cool.
you guys.
Can't wait to see those. And definitely keep an eye on Dustin's Instagram as well. He's going to be announcing when he's going to drop those collabs that he and Tony and Cuddle Assassin did. So should be sweet.
Yeah, they're going to be on my website, and I'm just going to announce on Instagram the date that I'm going to make them available, and it'll just be a drop, first come, first serve. So make sure you follow myself and Kevin on Instagram, Revere Glass, and @whatsafoot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We wanted to thank our sponsor, Mountain Glass Arts. As always, they are a great place to get any tools, supplies, color, whatever you might need for your glass blowing adventures.
Yeah, I really love their selection of colors and tools because they get stuff from smaller manufacturers. A lot of tools and colors come from glass blowers who just wanted to make that tool or color, and Mountain Glass does a really good job of spreading that out, so they're not just dealing with a couple of the major manufacturers. They help a lot of different smaller companies, which is great.
Absolutely. It's great to see the vast selection you can get, and whatever you might need, they'll ship it right out to you.
Totally.
Once again, thanks to Mountain Glass Arts for always supporting On the Torch.
Yeah, and we wanted to thank you guys for your suggestions on demos. You guys suggested we make a steamroller, and there's the steamroller. So if you guys have any more suggestions, make sure you put them in the comments. Questions, put them in the comments, because we want you to win this steamroller.
Absolutely. Should we hop in the studio and start making it?
Let's get in the studio and do it.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks guys. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is grab some of this line tubing. I've showed you guys a few times how to make vac stack tubing. This is just a vac stack, and then I have it on the blow tube.
Absolutely, just sealing up there. And now you're going to punty up to the other side so you can heat it up and make sure that seal is really nice before you start messing with the line tubing.
Yeah, because that disco sparkle color always has a really difficult time connecting to clear. So I just wanted to make sure that's extra nice and connected.
You really give it a hot seal, a little bit of air in there. And now you can pop that punty off, and you're going to also pull out any clear and close up the end of that tubing.
Pull that off. Make sure I remove any extra little bits of clear. And this isn't super important for this particular piece that I'm making to pull off the clear, because I'm just pulling this down to thinner tubing, but it is a really good habit to get into clean working styles.
And also pulling that termination will keep your tubing and lines really centered and nice and even.
So I'm heating it up. You can see I've kept the back close to the blow tube a little cooler, and then I'm heating up 3/4 of it.
Just putting some heat in there, and that's the part you're going to expand a little bit, because you wanted to kind of pull this down so the wall's a little bit thinner.
Yeah, because for this piece I want to make sure that the tube in the center of the steamroller is thin enough and the wall thickness is thin enough, so I'm going to puff it out a little bit to thin out the walls and then stretch it down, as opposed to just stretch it down straight, which would keep the wall thickness kind of thick.
Right, it might not look very proportional when it's inside the steamroller.
And have reduced airflow as well.
Absolutely.
So heating this up, and then I'm going to pull this down. The steamroller shape is a super classic shape. It was really one of the original glass pipe shapes, and a lot of people put little sculptures like dragons and stuff inside of them. So you can shape any sort of piece like this that you want. For this demo, I'm just going to do just a tube, but feel free to sculpt this and add stuff onto it if you'd like.
Right, it's kind of a fun canvas having that clear tube to do stuff in. You could do inside out, you could do surface work, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun shape.
So now that it's pulled down, you're just going to go in, open up that end with your diamond shears, kind of using them like a V-blade, but since you don't have another handle, they work great.
And once I squeeze it down a little bit, I'm going to kind of listen to when it starts to make a crunching sound, and then I know that I've put enough stress in the glass to break it off right there.
Opening that up with your jacks there, and you're just going to get this part of the tubing nice and parallel with the rest, so you can put your flare on that'll seal up with the actual steamroller.
Exactly. So now I'm going to heat this up and get ready with my other blow tube.
Making sure it's nice and even there, since this will be a very visible part of the tubing.
So now I have my clear blow tube in my other hand, and I'm going to attach this, make a nice seal.
Push, pull, put some heat back into it. And now, since that's going to be in the finished piece, you're going to make sure it's nice and pretty, nice and even wall thickness and everything like that.
Absolutely. So I'm just rocking back and forth, making sure that it stays even, put a little air into that. And then I'll go back in here, work on that seal just a little bit more, making sure that it's nice and sealed.
And you blocked the end of that other blow tube with your finger when you blew into it, so you got enough air pressure.
That's absolutely true. So now, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a little piece of clear attached to the end of the tube, which I'm going to flare out, and I'm going to use that piece of clear to attach it, and that's going to provide a cleaner looking finished product. And that's the size tube that I'm using, so I'm just measuring that to make sure that I can flare it to the right size.
So now you're going to go in, get that whole portion of clear hot. Well, first you're going to open it up a little bit so you have a nice starting place. And then once you have that big enough to get your jacks in, you'll heat it all up and flare it out.
Just using one blade to start off with, open that up, and you can see it's starting to flare.
Going back in for a two-step flare on this one. Gotta be nice and precise.
And this time I'll use both blades, and I'll flare that open to a little foot basically. Hopefully I get it the right size. We'll go test it right now.
Let's give it a check on that tubing, and ooh, it's very close.
Like really, really close.
Like less, like half a millimeter, maybe less
Something
off.
like that, yeah.
So just going to go in with your jacks on the outside of it and kind of pull it back closed ever so slightly.
Yep, just a little bit closed, just to make sure that'll fit in there. Oh, so close.
I mean, it would probably fit if you really forced it, but you don't want to be forcing it.
No, we'll just heat it up a little bit and just try to condense that glass just a tiny little bit, and then it should fit in.
No tools needed for that even, just gravity.
Oh,
Boom.
There we go.
Nailed it.
Perfect.
So now you can go in and you're going to prepare this by cutting it off from your handle there, make it the right length.
Yep, exactly. So I'm going to use my diamond shears again for this because I don't have a punny attached to the other side. Just going to compress that down, and then I'll be able to break that off.
Once again, you're listening for that kind of crunching, crackly noise, and then wait for it to cool a little, taps right off.
And now I'm going to attach a punny to the disc that I made, and then shape that punny so that it sits on center.
Right, because right now you can see it's kind of spinning around the punty, which you don't really want. It makes it hard to work things and keep it on center. So you do a little kind of U-bend in the punty there.
Just trying to get that centered. And there we go. Now it's much more centered. And I'm going to flare this open.
Heating that up, and it's essentially the same as the other end, just making it nice and even with the rest of the tube.
Yeah, this one I'm going to put a little thick lip on it.
And you can see that the cold seal punty didn't quite stand up to the force of the jacks there, so good save by the L marver there.
Maybe that was like a 3 on the steel scale and it should have been a 6.
So go back in with a little bit hotter seal there, and now you're ready to flare that out.
And I'm just going to keep this lip a little bit thicker than the other one, just for aesthetic.
A little bit more heat in there, condense it a little.
Put that in the kiln.
You're thinking about it. You weren't sure. You think you are going to put it in the kiln.
Am I going to put it in the kiln?
Yes.
No, wait, no.
Yep.
Okay.
You know, sometimes it's not sure, right? It could be small enough to bench cool. But since you're going to be using it soon, you probably want it hot so that it's not in this weird in-between stage of heat.
Well, we tricked you guys, you know, so you guys got to pay close attention because you never know what's going to go in the kiln here.
It's true, it's true. So now you've got a blank of that same diameter tubing you were checking with from your bench, and you're just going to flare the end so it's even, so you can slide the tube in.
Yeah, and I flared it just a little bit bigger than the tube itself, and I'll be able to condense that back down when I'm ready. So knock off the punny, go back in and heat up any punty mark on that ring, and then slide it in.
A little tricky here, you're just going to get it started with the diamond shears and then use your tweezers to get it in position for the seal.
Yeah, and it definitely moves around until you stick it, so you got to pay attention as to not having it move in a direction that you don't want it to.
And also making sure that the ring is as perpendicular to the tube as possible, right? So it's sealed at the same point all the way around the tube.
Yeah, and you want to also make sure that it's, you know, the right size. If you have too much space, that's why I was measuring that, you're going to have a much harder time connecting it. Now I'm just straightening out, like Kevin was saying, to make it perpendicular.
And now you're going to go in and make sure that that's fully sealed in to the end of that tube, and then start to close it up once you have that seal nice and solid.
Yeah, you can see that it's not quite all the way sealed around, but it's getting there. And as I'm pushing it down, more and more is connecting.
And you're heating up both the outer wall and the edge of that ring and kind of marvering them together.
And then I'm going to close it up, and this is going to allow me to marver it at a slight angle and push, and that's going to really finalize that seal and that connection point.
Gather that up there and kind of snipped off the end with your diamond shears and then puffed it out so you can work on that connection.
So here you go, I'm putting a lot of heat into there. And I'm going to go put this on the marver, spin that around. You can see that that seal is really taking shape now.
This is a seal you really want to make sure doesn't have any stress in it, since it's kind of pulling in on all sides of that tube, and definitely a stressful situation.
So I'm just going to put a lot of heat in there to make sure that the glass is really nice and hot, and that takes all the stress out. And then I'll go put it in the kiln after that to make sure that it's really sealed. Well, I'll attach the wigwag first because it's all in the same area, and then put it in the kiln. But I'm not going to move on to another section of the piece that's out of the range of the flame until I put it in the kiln.
Just checking your straightness there, making sure it looks good.
Yeah, as I heat it up, it moves around a little bit so I can get it hot and then let it fall into center.
So just pulling out that end now with your tweezers, you're going to open up a hole. And sometimes when your tweezers are hot, the glass can actually stick to them a little bit. So you just got to knock it off there. That's why you don't want to put metal tools in the flame generally, because the glass will just melt to them.
If it was much hotter than that, it would start to leave marks on the glass and eventually melt and destroy the metal tool.
So now you have a hole open there, and you're going to pop it in the kiln to match up the hole on the wigwag.
I'm just going to put it in the kiln for like a couple of minutes while I shape this wigwag. It's not a full annealing, but I think with this seal, I would rather have not left it on the bench.
Totally, yeah, with that ring seal all the way around there. So you got that nice and thin with pulling that out with some air, and you're going to flare that back to round from that kind of interesting cut off there.
Yeah, I pulled off a little bit weird, so I'm going to go in here, trim it up with my shears, take off any clear, and then attach it.
Totally, rather than pulling it out, you're deciding to go for the trim method this time since it started out uneven.
Exactly.
Going into multiple steps here, so you're not forcing the glass at all.
Put that on the tile bench.
And now you can go in and shape that opening so it's the right size to match up to the clear.
Yeah, and it was a little bit thin too, so I condensed the walls just a slight little bit around that lip.
One final adjustment for size, and now you can go in and seal that wigwag up.
I'm just going to push and then pull just slightly to make sure that there's no folding or overlapping. I'll remove the punny with the flick of the finger, and then I'll heat this up and make sure that all comes to the same diameter as the clear tube.
Absolutely, and this is very similar to the way we were talking about the sections in the last video with the cup. You know, heating where you need the most heat with the color, so as the wigwag is a lot stiffer than the clear, so you're focusing most of your heat there.
Heating that up, making sure that it's nice and even and melted in, flaring out the wigwag so it's the same diameter as the rest of the tube. Just gonna marver that.
using a combination of air, your marver, and gravity to get that nice and even. And since this is of course a piece that's going to be a cylinder, you want to make sure that outer wall is nice and straight all the way down.
Exactly. So now I'm going to pop the hole in here and then attach a blow tube so I can switch sides and finish the other side.
Nice hot seal onto that wigwag, and once again that disco sparkles right on the end there, so I'm going to make sure that's nice and hot. Do you know what other colors that wigwag has? Is that some...
Oh, it's probably forest green, maybe jade green. There's wisteria and wisteria stringers. I think that's what I used in that tubing.
Very nice. Wisteria, a classic. I think I was in some of the first wigwags I ever saw you do back in the day.
Yeah, and speaking of different colors, I want to let you guys know that I've started to review and shape each of the colors starting with Glass Alchemy. So I know that we have posters and everything, but now there's going to be about a 5-minute working video on my online school for each of the colors starting this week or next week. You guys can start to see how each one of these colors works in real time.
That's super cool to be able to actually see, you know, how the heat affects them and things like that.
So while this went into the kiln, I realized that I'm going to have to put a little feet on this piece for it to stand up. And I wanted to put on something that was matching, so I grabbed a little piece of tubing and I'm going to actually make this tubing solid by sticking in clear glass in the center.
So you just flared it to the same size as that clear rod and nailed it on the first try.
Yeah.
So you just slid it in, and now you're sealing it on all the way around using your marver to kind of push the tubing against the clear.
Yeah, the marver and my blow tube. You can see my blow tube's connected, and I'm evacuating the air just a little bit at a time to make sure that it stays even. This would be the same technique you would use to sleeve any piece or reticello. Same sort of style of technique.
Just a little tiny, right? And with a solid thing rather than another tube, generally.
Heating that up on the marver, and then the tube ends pretty soon after where I am. So I'm just trying to kind of feel where the tube ends and where the solid rod ends and where the tube ends and all that stuff.
Going into the end now that you've got it all sealed, and you're going to pull that clear out so that it ends with line tubing on the end of the section.
Exactly. And if you're making the same thing 2 times, it's good to take the piece and divide it in half. So I'm going to attach a punny to one side and then to the other, and then take that and divide it in half so that I have the same sized ball that I'm working with for each side.
Totally. So you're just going to heat that up, get it nice and even first, and now you can putty up to it.
Yep, exactly. Attach those. And now I'm going to take it off where I think that the clear glass is still just a little bit in there, so I can utilize really my whole piece.
You can see there it worked very well. That tubing condensed down right where you ended that clear rod inside. Now you'll just pull that out, make sure it's all tubing, and maybe make it a little bit shorter because you don't need quite this much for the 2 little pieces you're making.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that I can even made them smaller, but it's kind of a cool look, and they're each like little marbles on the piece.
So just pulling some clear off, and now you'll put on that second punty and divide it in half.
So here we go, back into the small flame. Gonna divide that in half, and then I'll be able to twist each one.
Using a really nice sharp lynx flame there, pulling just a tiny bit as you heat, and now you use your V-blade to really crease that where you can snap them off.
Sometimes with punnies you got to be a little bit careful about snapping this way. Blow tubes, it's much easier, but sometimes the punnies do break off, so you have to be ready for that.
Now you can go in, you'll stick one of those in the kiln and shape the other one, spiral it up.
So I'm just heating it up, turning. This is very similar to making a spiral or a wigwag. Just heating it up, spiraling it together.
Spinning one hand just a little bit faster than the other, and then you'll pull that punty off and shape it into a nice kind of cylindrical shape, a little pill almost.
Yeah. So heating it up, and you can see that there's different ridges and stuff, so I'm just going to add a bunch of heat into that, make sure that it ends up round and smooth.
You can see you have that whole thing hot, flipping around on the punty there, and might not look like it's on center right now, but as it cools down, you'll bring it all back to center, and it'll be very nice and good to go.
Yeah, that's a really important point, is that especially with the Italian method for blowing glass, there's times when it appears that it's off center, but it's really just so fluid, center is moving so fast The way that I work, I keep it fluid, and then when I want to stop it from moving, I hold it in center.
So you took that first, you cold sealed up to the other end, took the first punty off, cleaned up that end so it's nice and good looking, and now you'll swap for the other one.
Probably like a 3 on the seal scale, something like that.
Right, gotta be careful when I'm sticking it in the kiln. I'm over there playing kiln caddy today, since I'm all blocking it quite nicely with the camera.
Kiln and cam, man.
You know it.
So now I'm going to attach a punty to the other side of this one, and then do the same thing. Heat it up, twist it around, make the ball, and then I'll have 2 things that I can attach at the same time.
Pulling that glass off as you did with the other one. Exactly the same process. And you want to try and make them the same size, so you're kind of thinking about the size as you're going here.
If you guys are making this, and we'd love to see the pictures, so make some of these pieces and tag Revere Glass School, hashtag Revere Glass School online on Instagram or whatever, and Kevin and I will totally see it, and we'd love to see what you guys do with this idea or this concept of a piece.
Absolutely, yeah. The throw your own spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool to have some new things to add to the repertoire.
Just heating this up. There's a little bit of clear glass on the end, so I'm using my tweezers to pick that out.
And now just making sure it's nice and round on the end there. And you're going to grab the other one and compare sizes to make sure they are nice and similar, since they'll be right next to each other on the piece.
Yep.
Good
and
to
let's
go.
see if they look good.
Pass the test.
Get that piece out of the kiln. Now we're going to attach the wigwag for the mouthpiece.
So you left a little bit of blow tube on there since you didn't want to put heat into the body of the piece too much, and also to keep it nice and long, you didn't have to pull any more glass out to open this hole.
Yeah, it's like the same kind of concept when you have a punny or a blow tube on a mini tube or something like that. And I like to leave like 1 inch so that I can heat up kind of slowly and move into the piece, as opposed to put heat right where that tension might be.
So now that you have a hole open, you're just going to puff it a little bit, make it bigger, and pop that wigwag on.
So I make sure to line up the 2 spirals, the wigwag on the front and the back. I want the 2 terminations to be in a line. So see me looking back and forth to make sure that I've aligned the 2 wigwags.
And now you're going to go in, pop that blow tube off, and shape it same as you did the other end.
Yeah, just gonna apply some heat. First, obviously remove any clear glass or anything that I can pick off with that rod. And I'm gonna heat it up and melt it together and blow it out so it's the same diameter as the tube.
And this is the same technique as you used on the other end, just putting that heat into the wigwag. A little bit of air, a little bit of marber. If you guys have any demos you want to see in the future, definitely let us know. I'm still trying to get Dustin to do maybe like a little tumbler glass, something like that. Might be fun, but if you have any other ideas, definitely let us know.
Yeah, let me know if you guys want to see a tumbler. I got an idea just now when you said that, Kevin, for a good one.
Ooh, very nice. Can't wait to see what we think of.
Let's do it.
So you're just going to pop that hole open now that you have the wigwag all lined up with the rest of the tube. And this is going to be the mouthpiece end of the tube here. So you're opening up a nice big hole, or not too big, but a good size hole for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's about 10 millimeters or so. I'll connect the 12 millimeter blow tube to that, and then that'll put it on the right side for me to take it off and finish the piece, put on the marbles, and blow out the big carb, the huge carb for steamrollers.
Mm-hmm. Once that seal is nice and solid there, you're going to go back to the other end and shape the bowl end here.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to heat this up and take off the blow tube, but I'm going to leave that sealed for a second while I push the bowl in.
So you're going to leave a little bit of the blow tube there and pop that in the kiln before you push that bowl.
11 minutes later.
So now you got that back out of the kiln, and you're going to use your mini torch to decide where you're going to open the bowl here. Get a nice precise spot.
Yeah, especially on this piece, I want to make sure that it's really right in the center of that clear, because I don't really want to deform the colored wigwag or push on the ring seal that I made.
And the other reason you want it to be precise is to make sure it's centered between the 2 termination points, so that it doesn't look like the wigwags are kind of off center on the piece.
Exactly, that's right. I remember going to the piece and saying, Kevin, do you think we should put this in line with the terminations or in between? And we decided for in between.
Yeah, it's kind of, you go either way. It would look great looking at the terminations, but I thought it would be kind of nice them wrapping around the piece, kind of.
But the most important thing is that it's a conscious choice.
Mm-hmm. And so you're going to heat that up, push that bowl in there, but only part way. You're going to go back in, put some more heat, and get it fully centered, fully pushed in.
Just because I want to be careful with this piece, like I was just talking about with the color and stuff. So I'm not trying to heat up too much of it and do this in one shot, a couple little steps.
And now while that area of the piece is still warm, you're going to put 2 little dots of clear so you know where to put the feet on it.
Yeah, this is just like an estimate, and I can melt these in or probably cover it up with the marble depending on where I put it, and just kind of line them up, looking to make sure that they're right.
That helps you kind of get them centered on the bowl so that it's, sits nice and flat.
Exactly. So I can attach one, and I'll pop that punny off.
And then use your mini torch to work all the way around the base of that. Make sure it's nice and sealed in there.
Heating this up, just like we've done a bunch of times. You guys can definitely get a mini torch. I know Mountain Glass sells them. They're about 100, 150 bucks, something like that. Super valuable tool. Use it every time I blow glass.
Now you're going to go in on the other foot here. Same process. Heat them both up. Get a nice seal in there.
And as I get them hot, I'm just going to push and then pull just a tiny little bit to stretch it out.
Now you're going to go in and pop that punty off and use your mini torch to seal that one in as well.
Just heat that up right around the connection point and make sure that that's fluid. One thing to keep in mind, or a good way to visualize this, is if you think of a skateboard ramp or a ski slope, you want to make sure that there's not going to be any ridges or bumps for that skateboard or ski to get caught in, and just got to be like a very smooth ramp kind of transition.
And that keeps the stress out of it.
There we go, just making sure that that sits right. It's a little bit not quite the way I want it to sit, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, flatten out both of those at the same time, and that'll really hold it to where I want, in the position I want.
Heat the bottoms of those guys, and then you can press it on the marber and really make sure it's nice and flat where you want it.
Yep. You can see I have the back of the piece on the marber and the 2 marbles, making sure that it sits the way I want. I keep going back in to heat up the ring seal to make sure that it's not going to crack because it's a high stress point.
Going in on that tubing there before you go into the actual end, heating that up, pulling it out.
Just removing any clear and being careful not to deform that wigwag at all. I'm going to go in, heat it up, blow just a little bit in the flame, pop that off.
And now you have an open hole. You can go in and use your jacks to flare out. And like you mentioned earlier, nice big carb on this one.
Just heating up and gonna melt that lip in a little bit, and I'll use this octagonal reamer to give it this final shaping.
Make sure it's nice and round there, nice and even. And now, ready for a test. Sit, make sure everything looks good before you pop it in the kiln, before you take off that other end, since it's the wigwag right on the end there.
So now I'm ready to take this off. I have my diamond shears. I'm going to heat this up a little bit because when I touch the glass, I don't want it to crack.
Get a nice precise flame here and go in on that punty connection.
Heat that up and boom, pop it off.
Disco Sparkle really didn't like being sealed there.
No, but we did it.
Good catch there, not even reaction. Cool as can be.
I expected that, huh?
I guess so, right? Going with your reamer there, make sure it's nice and even, work on any tool marks, and boom, that's the piece for you.
There you go. You guys can check out the piece. You can see the ring seal there and the tube in the center, a couple of wigwags on that thing.
You have very nice matching colors here. The greens, the Disco Sparkle, Wisteria, really nice cohesion, kind of flowing mouthpiece, tube in the center to the other end.
Yeah, and this is for one of you guys. Make sure you comment on the video and we'll send this right out to you.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome back, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the demo and learned a trick or a tip, something you can use in your own work, make some steamrollers. If you're gonna make them, we'd love to see them. Make sure you use the hashtag Revere Glass School, and Kevin and I will look at them.
Totally, yeah, pop those on Instagram and even tag us if you want. Love to see what you guys all make.
Absolutely.
So I got some questions for you, Dustin.
All
and
right.
Guys, if you have questions, definitely drop them down below. Always love to have some glass blowing questions to ask Dustin, or questions about anything kind of art related, whatever you want.
Whatever you want. And if you ask a question, you have a chance to win the piece as well.
It's true, very true. First up here from Purple Rain, how do you make Encalmos perfectly straight? He has trouble popping a hole, like a perfect hole to get the connections.
Well, I think making your hole good and small is key for that. So you want to pop a hole that's, depending on the size of your piece, but probably not much bigger than a 10 millimeters, 12 millimeters. And then you want to make sure that both have the same size. Connect those together when they're small, and then blow them out, and trying to make sure that you're keeping that line centered and symmetrical when you're blowing it out. And that you could do that with a punny, or just blow it like I do, where I attach something and blow it off, whatever's easier for you. But it's really, I think the keys are keeping it small and then blowing it out bigger.
And when you make that hole, you can kind of pull it out a termination almost as you rotate to help get that nice and centered.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very nice. Up here next from Jake Brinton. How hot does your ventilation get? Can it be hot enough to melt siding on a house, like if it's going up, the side of the house or something?
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say no in every case. I mean, sure, if you had basically your torch going full blast right outside through your house, I mean, it potentially could get hot enough to melt it or damage or even cause a fire. So what you want to do is create a little bit longer of a run of your ventilation system, and then it shouldn't, the hot air should have dissipated by the time it goes through the building or outside.
Totally. And also, all depends on the size torch you're working with,
right.
How many people you have working.
The most important thing though is to stay safe and use logic, right? Do some testing. So if you're worried that it's going to get too hot, turn your torch on, stand where you think it's going to get too hot, feel it a few times, use a laser temperature sensor or whatever. Make sure you're really conscious around your studio setup, your ventilation, the building that you're using, what's in the building, no cardboard boxes under your desk, etc. Like, be smart about it, you guys. You're using fire, hot, and you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Better safe than sorry, always.
Yeah, it's crazy. Sometimes, like today, I just got to tell you the story really fast today. I was blowing glass teaching a lesson. I knocked off a piece of tubing. It was hollow right into the water. The steam popped it out of the water and like rocketed out of the water and flew and hit my arm. So you never know what's going to happen. You just got to be prepared and be careful. Make sure you have fire safety equipment, tile, concrete, fire extinguishers, etc.
Absolutely, yeah. You guys probably have seen the fire extinguisher right behind Dustin. Want to have it close at hand just in case.
Yep.
Very nice. From the third question here from Gummy Bacon XO, how do you push through and keep working on a piece that you have been battling with?
You feel it out, right? So sometimes you may need a break. Sometimes you may need to just sit down and just like push through it. Sometimes you might need to start it over and do something slightly different in the design. So, you really have to feel it out, but you have to push through somehow. And if you don't push through, you're not going to progress as an artist. So you use whatever technique you need to at the time. And I think that's kind of one of the things about being a creative person or an artist, is that we're going to run into times where it's more difficult to make work, where there's other things in our life, or the piece is too complicated, we're pushing our skill set. And just remember to be gentle with yourself. You're trying something really hard, life is stressful enough, so just keep practicing. Don't get mad at yourself, don't tell yourself that you suck, because you don't. You just need more practice.
Absolutely. Very wise words right there.
Thanks.
All right. Should we give away the beer glass that I forgot to bring?
The imaginary beer glass on the table.
You guys know what it looks like. You can see the pics of it right there. That one is going to A. Lutz.
Nice. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that you like my shirts. So thanks.
Absolutely. They're all very nice. Very nice.
I designed them. I'm not sure you guys know that, but actually I designed them and then had them made, some of them in Thailand and some of them in Nepal, depending on which ones. But I design all of them, and I go over there and work with those guys to help me put them together.
Very cool. Very cool collabs. All right, wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, like and subscribe if you want to see some more videos coming out, more demos as always. So hope to see you guys in the next one.
Cool, thanks for watching, guys.